Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jim Bachman with the Brewers Association of Maryland, and this is our first Fermented Friday of February for 2022. I know that you have not seen us live for a couple of months. We've been trying to work our schedules out with all of the breweries as they've been reopening and welcoming guests back into their tap rooms. So we're very fortunate this afternoon to be joined by Julie Verratti of Denizens Brewing Company. I'll introduce Julie to all of you in just a couple of minutes, but first I wanted to just let everybody know that February is the Celebration of Maryland Craft Beer Lovers Month. We're very thrilled to be able to celebrate again this year as restrictions around the state are starting to lift a little bit. We had a wonderful kickoff with some of our industry partners at Pariah Brewing Company on Tuesday. I hope some of you have seen pictures of that. And we're really, really excited that a lot of members throughout the state are taking part and participating this year. We've got some great events coming up at a tap room near you, really wonderful beer releases, and some really fun things to do out there. So please do what you can to support a Maryland brewery this month. Go out, ask for Maryland beer at your favorite retailer, visit a brewery, and take some beer home. Whatever you do, drink some Maryland beer. And if you're watching right now, make sure you tune into the end of this episode because we've got a way for you to win some tickets to our upcoming Love Thy Beer event. Sadly, we had to cancel Love Thy Beer for February this year just because of the rising COVID numbers. But we do have the event rescheduled for April the 8th. We are returning to Silver Spring. We've got 25 great breweries on deck, and we're really looking forward to it. And very last, I do need to just give a shout out to Grow Fortify. They power the ability for us to be able to bring these virtual chats to you, and we hope you really enjoy it. So drop some comments in the questions in the comments on YouTube and Facebook. We'd be happy to answer those as we're going through this, and we'll be right with you. Julie, how are you?
Great. How you doing,
Thanks for coming on. Everybody who's viewing, this is Julie Verratti with Denizens Brewing Company in Silver Spring and Riverdale Park.
Hey, guys.
Very happy to have Julie joining us. You may have watched a diversity chat that we did last year that Julie was a part of, but we really wanted the opportunity to bring Julie in and talk about Denizens Brewing Company, one of the breweries that kind of led the way in terms of bringing more diversity to the spotlight here in the state of Maryland. Not only through their ownership group, but also through the folks that they've had representing them in their tasting rooms and on their sales force. And we also have a really wonderful opportunity to just catch up and hear about all the great things that Denizens has been up to. So, Julie, how you been?
I've been all right, man. It's been 2021 was kind of a whirlwind of a year for me.
Yeah.
In Denizens.
you want to share a little bit of what 2021 was all about? You kind of lived a very illustrious life for a few months there.
Yeah, I left the beer industry for a little while and went and actually had the honor and privilege to serve the President of the United States. So I went and worked at the Small Business Administration, overseeing their field offices across the country, which was really an amazing experience. But I'm back in beer now and super happy to be back at Denizens, and I love this industry and I love beer and I love being a part of it. It was a really cool experience to advocate for the industry as a whole at that national policy level. Wouldn't have traded that experience for the world, but like I said, Denizens is my first love. Beer is my first love. So I'm super happy to be back now.
Well, that's awesome. Do you want to briefly give everybody just a little bit of a background about Denizens and who you guys are as a team and a company?
Yeah, so we're family owned and operated, independent. Started in 2014. Our whole ethos is that everyone has a seat at our table. I appreciate you mentioning, the efforts that we make in terms of diversity and inclusion in the beginning there, Jim. That is a very important part of our ethos as a company. And, we like to support the community. I think, most breweries do. And we, like I said, started in 2014. And when we first got our doors open, we actually created a brand new business model in Montgomery County. We were the first sort of hybrid production / brew pub / tap room business in Montgomery County. We were able to pave the way to knock down a lot of the antiquated laws that had barriers to entry for folks. So, the fact that you can self-distribute in Montgomery County, Maryland, and bypass the county government is because of the work that we did, that we advocated to get those laws changed. The fact that you can operate a brewery tap room in Montgomery County and not be required to operate a kitchen at the same time, also rules that we got taken down. And so we opened again in Silver Spring in 2014. Since then, it's again also been a whirlwind the past almost 8 years. We expanded in 2019 to Riverdale Park, Maryland, which is right down the street from University of Maryland, just south of College Park and just north of Hyattsville. Really, really great space over there. We were able to quadruple the size of our brewing tanks. So we went from brewing into 15-barrel fermenters to 60-barrel fermenters, really with the eye of just increasing our distribution footprint across the area. And so you can find our beers all over the state of Maryland, all over DC, and all over Virginia. And that's been pretty cool to do that.
Is there a specific kind of stylistic approach that brought you and your team together at the beginning, and you kind of said, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, I think, when we first started, we were much more of a brew pub focused model. We distributed for sure, but not anywhere close to what we're doing now. I mean, now a large majority of the beer we make, we sell into distribution and not necessarily in our tap rooms. And it was the opposite of that for the first few years that we were open. And so as a brew pub, you tend to make more esoteric and different styles. And we always like to think that we have a beer for everyone. We've got 20 taps. I never expect someone to come in to either Silver Spring or Riverdale and sit down and try all 20 of our beers and think, wow, I love every single one of these. These are all amazing. I don't expect people to like every single beer, right? And so we make broad styles. We have 4 beers that we carry year round: our Animal Hazy IPA, our Born Bohemian Czech Pilsner, our Southside West Coast IPA, and then our third-party Belgian-style triple. So I just listed 4 beers. Those 4 beers use 3 different yeast strains. And so that's an example of where, even though we're sending those into distribution, it's a small amount of beers, but it's a wide range of styles. And so that for us is an example of bringing that sort of like brew pub approach where you can experiment and make lots of different styles, but also approachable beers so that when it's sitting on the shelf, it's beers that customers go back to over and over and over again. And that's been the experience we've had, making sure we have consistent branding, really investing in that, making sure that our beer cans all look the same and is recognizable across the room. That's really important to us, just as much as the care and, focus we put on the quality of the liquid. When we opened Riverdale in 2019, we built out a quality assurance lab there. We did lab work in Silver Spring, we still do, but we just didn't necessarily have the dedicated space. We put about $40,000 into a quality control and quality assurance lab. We have a microbiologist on the team who is in charge of our quality and packaging, Tim Fothergill. He is an incredibly talented scientist and beer drinker and beer maker, and we're lucky to have him on the team. But because his focus is 100% on that, we feel really, really confident that when we put beer in packaged format and we put beer in kegs and we send it out into the market, we know it's gonna behave correctly. We know that it's gonna sit on the shelf. It's gonna be fine. We make sure we date code everything. That's one thing I will say. If I have the biggest pet peeve I have is breweries putting out beers that sit on warm shelves and there's no packaged on date or there's no best by date. That drives me nuts as a consumer. It also drives me nuts as a fellow industry business owner, because we all kind of have to look out for each other. We all need to make sure we're holding each other to higher standards. This is a serious business. These are livelihoods that people have, and people need to feed their families and pay their bills, and we got to make sure that we're growing our consumer base. And part of that is making sure we always have transparency and high quality product that we're putting out there to the market.
The one thing that I always appreciated about the 12-ounce long neck packaging was that the case cartons were always strewn somewhere throughout a retailer, and you could find a date usually on the case carton. You couldn't find it on the bottle. And that's kind of disappeared now. If you don't find it on the sticker on the top of a tech pack or on the bottom of a can, you're kind of looking for nothing, and it's really hard to make a buying decision.
Yeah, and for me, listen, I understand, again, I agree with you, Jim. Even if it's just putting a sticker on top of the pack tech, try something, right? Because you can get, a $20 gadget at the store and just sticker tape everything, right? It's obviously more ideal to get a date coder, But I understand those date coders are very expensive, and it's not easy to get those right away. But if you can do it, you should do it. And I can tell you right now, as a consumer, I will never, ever, ever purchase beer in a store that is not date coded. I just won't, because I don't know when it was made. I don't trust it. I don't care how hyped the brewery is or how much people are talking about that beer. I'm never going to do it. But if it's date coded, I'll purchase it.
That's it. And when you're separating a consumer from, 18 to $20 for 4 beers, it's a pretty good idea to make sure they have the information they need.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm definitely not, flying a $20 bill for beer I've never tried before and is not date coded. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a great opportunity for brands like Denizens to reinforce that with the retailer. The retailer does carry a lot of sway. It's tough to say, hey, you should talk everybody into it, but at least the retailer can start saying, hey, I'd like to see when this was made.
Yeah, it's important. It's important.
Yeah, it is something that's kind of overlooked to the detriment of some brands. And I did want to say, I really think that's super that when you guys opened up in Riverdale, quality control, the ability to maintain quality and have the aspiration of high quality beer throughout your entire process, being at the forefront is awesome. There are a lot of people who, decide that they want to expand and, we'll get to a lab later, or we'll think about those things later. And it's all about just cranking out more beer. It's
so important. It's so important because you can crank out beer, but if you don't, the reason you have the lab is you can detect issues. So like, we've detected issues in some of the batches we've made. And because of that, we were able to make the business decision that, we're not going to send this out into market. And we caught it before putting it into cans, right? And so that's why it's so important, because it's a matter of, what if there's a customer out there and the very first experience they have with our beer is a batch that we didn't put through the rigor of testing, and we just sent it out to market and it sat warm on a shelf and it just wasn't good, right? That customer is never going to buy our brand again. And it's competitive out there. We're friendly, we're a collegial industry, and that's one of the things I love about beer. But at the same time, we're also competitors, right? And so you got to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. We try to do that as much as we possibly can. Yeah, that's why I really, really hound on that. I'm also, another pet peeve I have. I don't know why I'm going to this negative.
Oh, let's have Julie's pet peeve session.
Hot takes by Julie Verratti. Although I don't think they're that hot takes. I think a lot of people probably agree with this, but it drives me nuts, the intellectual property theft that happens in this industry. If you're building a brand, then build your brand. Be proud of who you are and create something for yourself, and riding on the coattails of another brand that has put tons of money and effort and expense in a brand that they built themselves, and then you go and steal some of that and put it on your can. Like, that to me is just, again, very amateurish in my mind. And I also will not buy, products that the cans look like that. I love cans that are designed, from scratch, and like it's telling the story of who you are, because you started your brewery because you have a point of view, right? You started your brewery and making the beer you're making because you think you have a story to tell and a product to add to the market that people are going to enjoy. So make it 100% yourself. I think that you sort of are shortchanging yourself and your brand by not creating those individual stories and designs.
Well, when you welcome somebody into your tasting room, you want them to feel your vibe. You want them to see what your ambiance is about and what your culture is bringing to the table. Yep. And if you walked into, somebody else's brew pub and they felt exactly like Denizens, the first thought would be, why didn't I just go to Denizens? I think you get the same kind of concept when you're looking at, especially when it's a close IP borrowing to somebody else in the industry. I think that those are times where, you run into some real issues. And Chris Sands just asked a great question, and it's kind of along the lines that I was going to go. Chris was wondering, what about those concepts that are more pop culture inspired but not complete ripoffs? And my point was going to be, there's some nostalgia that I think people like to harken back to tell their story.
100%.
That's a totally different thing than taking a cereal box and changing the cover and just putting your brand on it.
No, I get that, and I understand the question, Chris. Hi, Chris, by the way. I haven't talked to you in a really long time. Hope you're well, man. Thanks for watching. I think nostalgia is really, really important when you're connecting people to your brand. You can do that and also not rip off full-on intellectual property. And at some point, Yeah, it may not be exactly what it is, but if it causes confusion, I mean, really, that's what the U.S. Patent and Trade Office is going to look for. It will cause a likelihood of confusion to somebody. If they see this, will they think it was made by that original business, or is it a totally different business? So that's really, it's kind of a subjective test, but I don't know. I get nostalgia, but again, I'm just like, I'm pretty like hardlined on this in terms of what I think about the IP theft stuff.
Well, goodness gracious, you have an opinion.
I got lots of them, man.
So you guys have an 8th anniversary coming up this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
When is your 8th anniversary?
July 14th will be our 8th anniversary in Silver Spring. And the month before will be our 3rd anniversary in Riverdale Park.
No, that's awesome that they line up so close to each other.
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose. We were trying to get Riverdale open before then, but building out and permitting and all that stuff, it just sometimes gets delayed. But
what priorities do you guys have on the horizon for 2022? What's business look like for Denizens? What are you guys thinking about rolling out, doing?
Yeah, we're I think 2022 is going to be a really fun year for us. We've been making hard seltzer for a couple of years now that we've been distributing in the market in Montgomery County, called Moco Hard Seltzer. But we have been approached by our distributor partners in Maryland, DC, and Virginia that they want to sell it. And so what we're planning on doing is we're rebranding it. So it's going to be called Den's Hard Seltzer, so DENZ, just sort of a rip off of our own, Denizens Brewing Company. And we're going to be putting out 5 flavors, starting out with our 2 core year-round, which are blood orange is one flavor and lime is the other. But we spent about 2 or 3 years, again, doing a lot of testing to create these recipes before we felt confident enough to put it in packaged format out into the market. It's done really, really well for us. Hard seltzer is a thing that's not going away. It's only growing. I see it as a category, and I am excited to see, how the rest of Maryland, DC, and Virginia react to this seltzer. The Washington Post actually said that our hard seltzer was the, quote, LaCroix of hard seltzer, in the sense that there's no weird aftertaste to it. It's pretty straightforward and subtle in terms of the flavoring, and drinks great on its own, but also is great as a mixer and say like a cocktail, or, if you want a gin and soda or a vodka soda or something, it works pretty well with that as well.
Was the motivation due to having guests come in and ask for that, or was it just seeing how seltzer was performing in the market and kind of thinking that was a good opportunity?
I'd say a mixture of both. I mean, it's a gluten-free option, which, people want. It's always good, again, because we have tap rooms. We sell beer, wine, and liquor in both of our tap room locations. And so just adding a gluten-free option that we made was a great thing to add to the menu. But also, yeah, I mean, we are a professional for-profit business. We're in this to earn money. We're in this to make sure, we're, paying our team well, make a little money for ourselves so we can retire one day. We've got a lot of debt we have to pay back. We debt financed our build outs. And so if you see something that's trending in the market, it makes sense to make that product if that's where, people are going towards. If you look at, marketing information and sales information on what Gen Z is doing, they're interested in things like seltzer. They're interested in things. The information is out there if you look for it. And so I try to really keep a pulse on what's going on, not just across beer, but across the beverage industry in general, non-alcoholic and the like. Like I learned the other day, apparently Gen Z is more likely to drink cold coffee, so iced coffee, way more than they are to choose hot coffee, whereas boomers only drink hot coffee compared to iced coffee. So there's like little things like that. So when you're thinking about, creating the next beverage that you want to make, you can look at that type of trend data and make a better business decision for your company. You owe it to yourselves, you owe it to your banks, and you owe it to your employees to always be trying to be as successful as possible, in my mind.
I like the way that your approach considers all of your stakeholders and not just, the bottom line for the business. And I think that that's a very important approach.
I mean, the bottom line is important because if you're not looking at that, like you don't have any other stakeholders because you're out of business. Right?
Sure, but once you start there,
right.
Once you know that that's taken care of, the opportunity is to make sure that all of your stakeholders are happy and satisfied and want to continue working with you. And I think that's
100%.
That's excellent. So you also mentioned before we were talking, you said that there was the great news about the seltzer. You also
Mhm.
asked me to talk to you about Hike the Alps. What's this
Oh,
project all
yes.
about?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, Hike the Alps is a series that we launched last year in 2021 for the first time. It's something that so Denizens was found. I probably didn't say this at the beginning, and I should have, but I'm one of three co-founders of Denizens. I also own it with my wife Emily Bruno and our brother-in-law Jeff Ramirez. And so we're family owned and operated. We spend holidays together. We work together. Um, so that's who owns it. Jeff has been brewing professionally for over 15 years now. He studied in grew up in his brewing career in the Philadelphia area, working for Iron Hill, and then he was out in Boulder, Colorado for a few years at Mountain Sun, and then moved out here to the East Coast to start Denizens with us in 2014. He When he was studying as an apprentice in the Philadelphia area, he was sent to Siebel in Chicago and was also able to spend a few months in Europe, learning from German and Austrian breweries and brewmasters. So he's always had this idea in his head that he wanted to make beers that were sort of inspired by those folks that he met and those breweries he was able to travel to early in his career. And so he came up with this concept called Hike the Alps. And it's a series of beers that we release last year, we've released 6 different beers. This year, we're adding 2 more. So we're going to have 8 beers released this year in the Hike the Alps series. These are traditional beers that are straightforward and complex, that are inspired by breweries that are along the base of the Alps in Germany and Austria. So the first beer that we're releasing this year is our Hike the Alps Dunkel that's coming out actually this month in the next 2 weeks. And then after that, we're gonna bring back a Helles. We've got a Hefeweizen, which is actually it won the gold medal in the 2021 Maryland Craft Beer Competition for wheat beers. We're gonna have we have a Doppelbock right now. I can actually show you. You want to see it? So this is what this looks like. So each of them it's just a straightforward Hike the Alps Doppelbock. But yeah, we've got all kinds of different things. We're gonna do a Rausch beer this year. We're gonna do a Pilsner. A Meritzen. So it's just a really fun series, and it allows Jeff to sort of get back to his roots and really focus on small batch, very carefully considered and focused traditional beers. And they're delicious. They're absolutely delicious, and they've been hitting out of the park. We only sell these in our tap rooms, and very few wholesale customers will get these. We can send some kegs out into wholesale and some bottles into wholesale, but it is very far and few between. If you really want to get your hands on this stuff, you got to come visit us either in Riverdale or Silver Spring.
No, what a bummer. We have to come and hang out with the great folks at Denizens to get these great beers.
Correct.
Well, not only are you making it sounds like this series is kind of made to please the desires of production from a brewer, but it also sounds like it's meant to please the palate of a brewer. I think we're all seeing the trend of folks working in the industry really kind of gravitating back towards traditional styles.
Yep.
Made with real intent and focus. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's a fun series.
I also love the package option. As everybody's moving towards cans and towards this more homogenized, tall, cylindrical thing, you've got this very cool shaped bottle that's really going to be catching. So I think that's neat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we package all of our bottled beers because we do Hike the Alps as one, but we also have specialty barrel-aged mixed fermentation beers that we've been making since the very beginning. For a long time, we threw a festival every year called Make It Funky, which was 100% mixed fermentation sour beers. We haven't done that since the pandemic. I actually don't know if it's going to come back. It might. We're considering bringing it back, but who knows? It's a lot of work. And festivals are, I mean, you know this, Jim. You guys are dealing with this Grow Fortify. Like, do you throw the festival? Do you cancel it? Who knows? But yeah, so like here's an example. We have a Papagayo, which is a Brett Saison with pineapple and soursop, which is a tropical fruit. We have Berry Petite, which is a petite sour ale, again barrel aged with strawberry puree. And then we have the Glow, which is this was not barrel aged. This was a 100% Brett fermented golden ale, which is absolutely delicious, 6.1%. It tastes like champagne, basically. It's super good. So those are just some of the bottles that we put out. And other than that, you can find our beer in our 6-pack, 12-ounce format. It's our Animal Hazy IPA. This is one that people know us for. It's really, really delicious, hazy, 6% alcohol. You can drink more than one. You can actually drink it while you're eating instead of it being a meal in and of itself. And then this is also our Born Bohemian Pilsner. So that's just this is what our labels look like. So if you're out in the world and you see us on the shelf, check us out. Give us a try.
One of the things that caught my ear when you were talking about your core lineup and how you are using 4 different yeast strains to get to these unique styles of beer was kind of this duality there. There's tends to be this consistency with your brand that is just, it's unfaltering. Everywhere you look and you see Denizens package lined up, you know exactly who it is.
Thank you. That's what we're going for. So I'm glad to hear that feedback.
But the thing that kind of caught my ear was, I've come from a brew pub background, and the house yeast was made to maintain consistency and finish through many of the styles because a lot of them were approachable. That said, there were places where Belgian yeasts were used, or different yeast strain was used for the application, but the core was made up of kind of the same finish, the same experience. And I just find that fascinating that as you're building consistency, you're also very cognizant about the fact that you want each thing to be intentionally able to stand on its own.
Yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. I appreciate that. And you're right. And I will say, for the Hike the Alps series, for example, we order very specific yeast strains for those because, again, it's inspired by very specific breweries from Germany and Austria. So we want to make sure that we're getting the, correct yeast strain from, that brewery from Ondex for the Märzen, for example. So we're always trying to just be as traditional as possible when we need to be, but also have fun and sort of experiment where we can. And that's what I mean by there's sort of this hybrid brew pub / distribution model. I mean, and we learned over the years, when we first opened, every beer we made in the tap room, we would also sell anywhere in distribution if somebody wanted it. Because I think that happens, like when you first open, you're like, oh my gosh, you guys like us? You want to buy our product? This is amazing. I'm just going to sell it to you. Yep. We just sort of threw everything at the wall. And I think it really, I don't want to say it harmed our brand, but it sort of, people didn't know what story we were trying to tell, right? Because there's a huge difference between beers that are in distribution and distribution breweries and then brew pubs, right? Because brew pubs, you can get away with making all kinds of crazy stuff, and it doesn't really matter because people are going to drink it eventually because they're coming to your brew pub to try something weird. You can't really get away with that when you're sending beers into market and through distribution. And so over the years, we've really culled back kind of what we make and sell into distribution. So we're very specific about that. We have the 4 that we send every year, all year. And then we've got 4 that are long seasonals that are out there for 6 months, spring, summer, fall, winter, right? And they sort of mirror against each other. And then we have a few short seasonals that are out there for like 3 months at a time, right? And so they just sort of pop. And that was a very deliberated decision that we came to in terms of what we picked for that. We had to murder off some of the year-round core beers that we usually made all the time and turn them into seasonals instead. And we added a different core beer to the lineup, again, based on what is the data showing us, what are people drinking these days. Animal Hazy IPA became a core beer a couple of years ago. It knocked out, we used to have our Big Red Norm and our Lowest Lord ESB was year-round. Those are now seasonals, and they mirror each other. So Big Red's available now. Lowest Lord will show up in the spring, summer, and Big Red will go away. But these are all, again, looking at data, looking at what are people drinking, what do we think the marketplace needs, where is there a gap, and trying to fill that where we can if we think we can make a very high quality version of that.
That's awesome. I'm always enriched when I have a chat with a brewery operator or a brewer who can describe the intent behind what they're doing. It makes me feel good knowing it's not just like, I love the whimsy in the industry, but I also love the idea that, you're a professional about it. You know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's great to hear that.
It took us a minute to get there. Like I said, we did some whimsy shit in the beginning, right? We just kind of just throw it out there, right? And you learn. We're fortunate enough that, the stuff that some of the mistakes we made and decisions that I don't think were necessarily the best, it didn't destroy the company, but we are trying to be way more deliberate with what we do these days. And I think COVID has really also simplified things. I say no to a lot more stuff than I used to say yes to. everyone's burnt out. And I can tell you, especially with my time, I know we're getting to the end here, and I just want to say this too, that, both my experience as an owner operator of a small business that is retail facing, that is in, this beverage space and food space during the pandemic, I can tell you that the burnout is real, but I can also combine that with the fact that, I served at the Small Business Administration during this recovery period in 2021, and the phone calls and the emails and everything that I would get on a daily basis, and the Twitter DMs that people would reach out to me, and I'm always happy to talk to anybody. I'm not, it doesn't bother me, but the desperation and the burnout and the fear and the anger and the hurt, all of it is real, and it's happening across the country. And I just want to make sure people know that, like, you're not alone if you're feeling that. It is absolutely happening to everyone. And I'm starting to feel more optimistic that we're going to get to the other side of this, especially with Omicron being much more mild version of the virus. And hopefully the next variation will be just as mild, if not more. Viruses are smart. They don't want to keep killing off their hosts. They want to be able to survive. So that's my hope. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. So, any of that, that's my disclaimer. But I'm excited to get into the roaring 20s again, as I know a lot of people who work in this industry and, love this industry, or, are consumers of this industry. I just would really love to see a lot more joy come back and a lot more happiness come back. And it's been exhausting. And so simplifying things and really focusing on what you're good at and what you want to do and what you're passionate about is so important these days. And I just wanted to share that message that you guys are not alone, and we're going to get through this.
Well, I think that's extremely valuable to share, not only to the businesses that are out there, but all of our enthusiastic supporters and consumers of Maryland beer that are all feeling the same way in whatever facet of life that they're in.
Yep.
You made that great comment about the roaring 20s. It seems like just yesterday we were cruising at this high point where the industry was just banging away on all cylinders, and nothing could stop it. We welcomed the new Denizens location. Shortly after that, we're ringing in February 2020 at your location, and 2 weeks later, the whole world basically felt like it stopped. To that point, I did want to just acknowledge that we have had some very fortunate outcome here in Maryland in terms of Maryland beer, because we've had breweries open even during the pandemic. In the height of it, we've had some great performers come out. We're still chugging away and making this industry grow. So,
I also think, part of that is like, people signed their lease in 2019 and started building out, and then they opened their door. I mean,
got to get it done.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you've invested all that money. You're opening your goddamn doors.
Yeah, no, and whether it's your money or somebody else's, it needs to start making a return.
Exactly.
So,
that's got to have been so scary for people to have opened. And not that I'm 100% can relate to it, because we obviously had our Silver Spring location, but our Riverdale location was open for less than a year when COVID hit, and we had just started hitting our stride, and then COVID hit, everything gets shut down, and then because we're so close to University of Maryland, which is like our biggest customer base, half the population left town. So like, even if we had been open for takeout, we had no one to sell it to. So it was particularly stressful over in Riverdale, but things are starting to really pick back up. School's back in action, and I just see like more and more people, learning about our brand and visiting us on a much more regular basis every day. So it gives me some hope.
That's awesome. Well, I am very thankful for the positive outlook. That's great. All of us need that every once in a while.
Sometimes I gotta force it out of myself, but I am naturally an optimist, and so.
Well, you did a hell of a job getting it out that time. Can you let people know how they can keep up with what you guys are doing at Denizens, how they can keep their ear to the ground, and what they should be looking out for in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. So on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, we're just at Denizens Brewing. So please follow us there. I tend to not tweet as much from the brand account, but we're more active on Instagram and Facebook, but generally stories. We'll post maybe like once a week, once every couple of weeks or so, but stories are pretty active on. If you want to follow me for more hot takes, you can follow me personally on Twitter at Julie Verratti. Although I'm not tweeting as much as I used to these days. Anyway, again, our website's just denizensbrewingco.com. Like I said, we'd love to see you. If you stop by, if you've never been, please ask for me. I'm usually around at one of the locations each day. So hopefully I get to meet you. Thanks for having me, Jim. I really appreciated being on the show with you. Jim, are you there?
I muted myself like a dummy.
I was like, what's happening?
I just was letting you know that I really appreciated having you on, and I was trying to gas you up a little bit, let you know that you're one of my favorite people in the industry, and have
Thanks,
been since
man.
I met you.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that, man.
So it's been a great time chatting with you. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. And I also, at the top of this, we talked a little bit about your roles and all the great things that you've done for small businesses throughout the country. But one thing we did not mention was that Julie has spent a lot of time serving on the board for the Brewers Association of Maryland, offered extremely excellent guidance in some tough times for this industry, and has always been a valuable asset to her friends and colleagues. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
All right. Well, I look forward to coming to see you soon. Under Kevin Attick's direction, my Valentine's plans involve fried chicken and champagne. Apparently, it's one of the best pairings that you can ever get.
Okay.
And now that you said that the Glow drinks like champagne, I might have to add that to the list.
I think you should. It's a good one.
All right. Well, if you're watching today or in the next couple of days and it's before Valentine's Day, make sure you run out to Silver Spring or Riverdale Park, visit Denizens Brewing Company, pick up one of those badass looking bottles of the Glow, and truly, truly enjoy it with the ones that you love. It's a good time to celebrate.
Thanks, Jim.
Cheers, Julie. Have a great one.
Cheers. Bye.
And if you are still tuning in this afternoon, I do want to let you know that we would love to see you at Love Thy Beer. I'm going to put a link to the Love Thy Beer tickets in the comments. Again, that event is happening at the Silver Spring Civic Center on April the 8th. And why not? Let's see. If you can tell me what organization Julie at Denizens was working for the Biden administration in 2021, we'll go ahead and give you a pair of passes to that event. We'll do that for the first person who can comment correctly, and you can win a pair of passes to Love Thy Beer. We'll see you there. Visit us at marylandbeer.org/February for more details about what's going on this month, and have a great Maryland beer this weekend. Cheers.